Hi, and welcome everybody. Welcome to Wife Tribe Live Chat. This is my motivational Monday, and my name is Wife Coach Era. I'm the founder of Wife Tribe, and I'm just so excited to be here, guys, because this is going to be good. This is going to be so good. So go ahead and do me a favor. Go ahead and invite three people. All right. I want you to invite three people. I want you to share this broadcast, and I want you to like it too. All right. Those are three things that I want you to do. I want you to like it, I want you to share, and I want you to invite three people onto this. All right. Tonight, we're going to be talking about worldly marriages versus godly marriages. And I talk about this topic. All right. I talked about this a little bit last year when I did the Power Couple Playbook, but I feel like that this is something that we have to continue to learn because it's just so much going on right now. And a lot of people are giving up on marriage. And I think that they really don't have a true understanding of what marriage truly is. And so that's why I always have to reiterate on some information because long as when we get that clarity, we can be successful, y'all. All right. And so that's what this is about. I want clarity tonight. All right. So we're going to jump right in because listen, I got so much stuff to tell you. So go ahead and invite your people. All right. Into the group. And I know this is going to be really helpful. So let's just go ahead and get started. I want to talk about the worldly marriages first because I feel like that's what we see. We see that more than anything. I'm gonna just keep it real. We see worldly marriages because that's what's on the forefront. That's what's on TV. That's what's on social media, and that's where we get a lot of our ideals about what marriage is. All right, and so I don't know about you, but a lot of people that I know didn't have like a playbook or they didn't have examples of what good Christian kingdom godly marriages is supposed to be like. We had more of the worldly marriages influences way more than we had the godly. All right. And so that's why it's important when we get this information that we not only share it with the people around us, but we go ahead and give this information to our families, our daughters, if we have any, our nieces and people that we love, so we can break those generational curses of failure and divorce. So let me just go ahead and get started. So worldly marriages, all right, they are self-centered. They are self-centered. I'm just going to jump right in. Worldly marriages are flesh driven, all right? Self-centered, I would say flesh driven, all right? First thing first, you know when something is a worldly marriage or you're dealing with a worldly marriage or you hear of a situation about a marriage and they're having these type of issues, all right, they're concerned with their own personal happiness. And I know that you're probably like, what in the world are you talking about? We are supposed to be happy, but I'm gonna get to that. All right, I'm going to get to that and I'm going to explain that in this live. So I just need you to stick with me. So let me get through this first. All right. So concern with happiness. That's the first example of a worldly marriage. That's something that's self-centered, like my happiness, what I want. All right. Companionship. What are you talking about, Wife Coach Era? Companionship. Isn't that why we get married? We get married for companionship. Okay. I don't even understand that. That doesn't make sense to me. But I just need you to hold on a second, all right? Stick with me, all right? And I'm going to explain this before we get off this live, all right? Finances is another example of when it's focused on finances, that's a sign of a worldly marriage. And you're probably like, what are you talking about? Finances? We can't survive on this earth without that. Okay. I get it. I get what you're saying. The focus. All right. I want you to understand those keywords, the focus. All right. Concerned with your own personal happiness, companionship, and finances. All right. And when you have issues with these things, a lot of times you can draw it up to be, okay, what type of marriage is this when the focus it's self-centered. It's about money. It's about personal happiness. It's about companionship. The things that we want, that's flesh driven. All right. Let me go a little bit deeper. All right. Sexual gratification. Sexual gratification. All right. And it's a plethora of other benefits that marriage brings, but we forget. All right. We forget about God's divine ordained purpose for marriage. All right. When our main concern is things that makes us happy, things that makes us happy, things that makes us happy, it is considered a self-centered marriage, what is deemed a worldly marriage. It is very flesh driven. All right. Let me just dive a little bit deeper. A worldly marriage is something like a contract, okay? It's a conditional agreement between two or more people, signifying that all parties will do something. Will do something, all right? Contracts get made, and for a limited period of time, there are based on if and then statements, all right? If they do this, then I'll do that. If they do this, then I will do that. People enter into contracts because of what they'll get out of them. And so if you're going into a situation with a partner, with a particular person in your life, your spouse, um, a soon to be spouse, and you're looking at it from that aspect, I'm going to tell you right now, that is a self-centered um, situation, and that is considered a worldly marriage. All right. So if you're going into it just trying to get something out of it, I'm not doing this unless they do that. So when they no longer receive what they want, when you're not getting what you want, and if you look around and you find a better option, then you're quick to terminate the agreement. All right. If you're not getting what you want out of it, you quick to terminate it because it's very self-centered. If I'm not getting what I want, I'm concerned about my happiness. I am concerned about my companionship. I need my finances to look a certain way. I need you to get it together. I need my sex life to be like this. So if you don't get it together when it comes to this sexual situation, I might step out. All right. And that is a perfect example of what a worldly marriage is. I'm really against prenups. And I feel like prenups is another example of what a worldly marriage is. And I know a lot of people talk and have heard about people getting prenups because, somebody might have a large sum of money and they married somebody. They're in the process of like marrying someone. They want to spend the rest of their life, but they want to protect their money. They don't want to somehow lose their money in this situation. That's a worldly perspective. That's a worldly marriage. All right. You're more concerned about protecting your earthly things. And you won't become a wife until these things are signed. And so that's very self-centered. There's very flesh driven. And when you get into a marriage and it's more of a conditional agreement between the parties, then you are more likely to end in divorce when you don't get your way and something else better comes along. All right. So it's just so much information that I can give you about worldly marriages. A lot of times a worldly marriage is very romanticized. That's definitely across the board. Every time you watch movies and we're so attracted to this romantic view of relationships and ideas of what marriages is supposed to look like, and then we automatically think that this is what our marriage to look like. So a lot of things that you see that's romanticized, that's from a worldly perspective. We look up to that and we aspire for our particular situations to look like that, and that's where we fail. Okay. We also must be very careful about receiving the wrong information. And I had a conversation with some lady, I didn't know her, on Facebook. She was just saying that she was going to Black Love. I think Black Love Doc is like it was a docu series with some black couples, and they were just talking about, they've been married for, some people been married for shorter period of time, and other people have been married for longer periods of time. But she was like using it as her Bible, to for her own personal situation in marriage. And I said I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't use it as Bible for your own particular situation, because it can look beautiful on the surface, but if it don't match up to what God is saying in his word about what is required in marriage, then you have to just, not listen to that. We have to always go to God and not things that we see. Even though those people are beautiful, they're rich, they're successful, that doesn't mean that they're following what God says. All right? Because I'm telling you, what the enemy does, he's a great imitator. All right. He disguises himself as an angel of light, and a lot of worldly marriages look beautiful, they look fun, they look rich, they focus on the image of things. That's what the enemy does. He focuses on the image of things. He make things look a certain way, and in reality, in the inside, their life and their marriages are a complete mess. All right, raise your hand if you ever met a person that you've seen from afar and they looked it so great from afar, but when you met them in person and you got to know them a little bit and you've been around them for a little bit over 24 hours, then you find out that their life is a complete mess. Raise your hand if that ever happened. And that has happened to me. And a lot of times that's how worldly marriages look. All right, from afar they look beautiful, they look perfect, but when you get up close and personal, they're empty. Okay, they're weak, they're miserable, they're depressed, they are dying in the inside. You can meet this a woman who can have everything. She's living a woman's dream. She has every person, every bag, and nice cars, and she's living fabulous life. But when you meet her, you get to know her, she's miserable, she's depressed, she's dying inside, because that's what the enemy does. He makes it look good, but it's no substance inside of it. And anything that's not God centered, all right, the enemy will devour. He can devour anything that's not God centered, and it will automatically end up in divorce. All right, and that's just the truth. All right, in a worldly marriage, um we seek our own agendas. In a worldly marriage, we seek our own agendas. It's not about anything about God. It's about me. Like I said, worldly marriages are very self-centered, is very flesh driven. All right. We always seek our own personal agendas. Another thing we have to be careful about, when you hear people play marriage down, like they downplay marriage just in general, that's another telltale sign that they really don't have an understanding of what marriage carry. Because anytime you downplay it and say, I don't even need it, I don't even want it, whatever, I can do without it, my life is more fabulous without it, I'm single, whatever. Anytime a person says that, they really don't have an understanding of what marriage is. All right. And in a worldly marriage, they are looking to be served, but they're not looking to serve. All right. And a lot of times when you have that, that creates chaos inside of a marriage. All right. And I'm going to give you some examples of a few more examples of a worldly marriage. And we're going to jump into godly marriages, because let me tell you this, when I get into these godly marriages, I don't know if y'all ready for it, but you better get ready. All right. So worldly marriages, polygamy. All right. That's worldly. That's not godly. That's worldly. Because a man should have his one wife. All right. Not multiple women running around here taking turns going in circles and all that stuff like that. Gay marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman. That's a worldly idea. That is not a God idea. All right. Anytime that you feel like you can just have as many options as you want to, you just have options in life. Like, you just don't take it seriously. They act up, they don't do what I want them to do, they go and I can, you know what I'm saying, have them gone and have them replaced in a second. Another thing with a worldly marriage is built on accolades and what looks good on surface. A lot of people just get together because we will look good, we'll be a good team, We can be the next power couple when it comes to like building wealth and different things like that. Our kids will look cute together. It'll be a picture perfect idea of what we think marriage is supposed to be. All right. And a lot of times when it is started that way, when it starts that way, it ends up in divorce. All right. Because everything is self centered, everything is flesh driven. All right. And so I hope that what I'm telling you about the worldly marriages is very, very helpful because it's very true. And all this stuff is backed up in scripture. I'll go ahead and put some scriptures inside of the comments when I'm done with this live so you can kind of go to the word and you can actually get scriptures that back up the things that I'm saying today. All right. Woo! I hope y'all ready. All right. See, the enemy is not concerned about your marriage at all. He's not. He'll make you believe that you're good. He's just like I said, he's full of deception. He's concerned about the look. He's just concerned about how it looks. He's not concerned about the heart of it, because if you have any substance, if you have a centeredness, a God centeredness, it cannot be destroyed. But when anything is surfaced, it's easy to devour, it's easy to tear down, and he does not like marriage. And so he's all about surface things. He's all about self-centeredness. Of course, if you know anything, if you did any research or reading scriptures about the the enemy himself, that's who he is. And so that's the things that surrounds him. And anytime that you have a marriage with that same spirit, is not going to survive. All right, so let me get straight into godly marriages, because I want to give you the information, and I don't want to take too long, because I want you to really stay with me. All right. And so godly marriages is just the complete opposite. All right. It's a selfless act. It's spirit driven. All right. And it requires change of yourself. Godly marriages require you to see yourself. I wish I had like one of my little mirrors around here, because I will put it up, and it just requires you to see yourself. That's what godly marriages does. All right. Let me make you understand about what God say about marriage. All right. And then you can just you have a better understanding just overall of where you are in your particular situation, and what needs to happen, and what needs to what you need to do moving forth. All right. And so we understand that God created marriage for expansion of his kingdom. All right. Expansion of his kingdom. This ain't even about us. We understand God created marriage to expand his kingdom in human history. That's what it's all about. All right. A kingdom marriage is a covenant union between man and woman who commit themselves to function in unison. All right. They commit themselves, man and woman, they commit themselves to function as a union under divine authority to replicate God's image, all right, and to just expand his rule in the world through both of their individual and joint callings, all right. The mission of marriage is to replicate, all right, the image of God, to carry out his command. Oh my goodness. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's enough for me, because now I understand 1000% what it's all about. It's to replicate, all right, God's image. That's what marriage is about. It's not about me. It's not about him. It's about God. All right. The term kingdom marriage, godly marriage, all right, assumes that there is a such thing as a kingdom. All right. If there's a kingdom, then it's assumption that there is a king. So if there's a kingdom, there is a king. All right. And so when you have a king, all right, the king has a subject to rules. All right. So a king has rules. And finally, there are subjects in the kingdom, and assumption there are rules that we must live by. So when we say kingdom marriage or godly marriage, we are referring to a marriage that operates according to the kingdom. All right. And that specific kingdom is God kingdom. So we are basically, we have a marriage and we're operating to the kingdom rules. All right. And so, if you would read the Bible, throughout the Bible, the kingdom of God refers to his rule of authority, another word that scripture used to describe his sovereignty. This means that God is absolutely in charge of everything in his kingdom. Also, in all his encompassing purposes for everything and everyone to bring him glory. So our marriages are meant to bring God glory. That is the whole purpose of it. The unifying and the central theme of the Bible is the glory of God expressed through the advancement of his kingdom. And since marriage falls under his kingdom, then we can conclude that it exists to bring him glory. See, I don't know if y'all got that. But if you need to rewind it and listen to it again afterwards, I need you to do that because I really want you to understand that. Because when I read that, it's like a light bulb that went off in my head. I'm like, okay, all right, okay. Did y'all get it? Did you get it? Because I got it. So when you hear that, this will only matter to you if you have a relationship with God, okay? If only way that what I just told you would matter to you is if you have a relationship with God. All right. And so understanding that marriage is about God's purpose. All right. It's about his kingdom and it's not about us. It's about his glory that he's going to get through us being married. All right. And so we should be concerned about that if we're children of God. All right. We should be concerned about that. Also, if you have a desire to please him, you care about his image, you care about God's image. And so, wow, it's mind blowing because it's so much deeper than what we think. If we have a relationship with God, this should matter. If we have a desire to live for God, it should matter. You should care about his image. It's not about me. This is about God. Okay. So the understanding comes in maturing in Christ. And so I think I was listening to somebody not too long ago, and they were saying that marriage is not for the immature, it's for the mature. I mean, oh my goodness, that's mind blowing. It's a lot of premature people getting married. If you're not mature, if you don't even understand this concept, if you can't get past yourself to understand what I just said and have the understanding of what marriage is for and the purpose of it, then you don't need to be married because you can't not only can't grasp it, but you can't accept it. All right. Because this is not about us, guys. This is about him. All right. The understanding comes with maturity. This is literally putting on the mind of Christ. So when you see godly marriages like myself, because I do have a kingdom marriage, I do have a godly marriage. You got to get past seeing me and my husband. You got to get past seeing all the people with godly marriage. You got to get past that, and you have to see God at work. Because when you see marriage, you're supposed to see God at work. When you see marriage, you're supposed to see God at work, period. Bypass the people and see God. And this is why marriage is so important, because this is a kingdom assignment. All right. And there's rules to this, and this is about bringing God's glory. All right. And so we have to understand that. So let me break it down a little bit deeper. So marriage is not about merely like a social construct, like we were talking about before with the worldly marriages. It's just so focused on what we want, our happiness. Happiness is not the goal for a godly marriage. This is one of the main problems that marriages face today, because couples relate marriage only through a social and emotional term. And then when you focus on social and emotional things inside of your marriage, that's when it goes sideways. Okay. We must go back to the biblical understanding of marriage, and understand why God created it, and understand that it's a sacred covenant. All right. With the responsibility to reflect his image, like I said before, and advance his kingdom. Marriage is to reflect his image. Marriage is to advance his kingdom. I'm going to say it again. Marriage is to reflect his image. And I'm going to say it one more time. Marriage is to advance his kingdom. Happiness is a benefit of marriage, but it's not the goal of it. It's a benefit, but it's not the goal. Okay. The goal in marriage is to reflect, or the goal of marriage, even before you get into it, the ones who trying to get into it and the ones who are already in there, the goal is to reflect God through advancing his kingdom on earth. So you got to ask yourself, do I even want to get married? Do you still want to get married? Because you have to understand that it's not about you. And I think that we've been lied to so many years, and we think that this is about us, and it's not. And that's why they fail. All right. So, man, this is deep. In the marriage, you must do battle God's way, because you're going to have some situations come up. No marriage do not have problem. All marriages have issues. So I don't care how good it looks. Everyone has issues. All right. So when you're married and the enemy try to come in, you must do battle God's way. And what I'm saying is, we have to put on the armor of God against the enemy who is trying to wreck our marriages, because the enemy is so against it. All right. Because the enemy don't want us to build God's kingdom. No, right? That's not what he's about. He's about surface. Remember what I said? He's about selfishness. He is the opposite of what God wants. Okay. And so when he comes in and he do things to try to get us to wreck our marriages and to have a problem with each other, we have to know how to fight Satan and not our spouse. All right. We have to fight Satan and not our spouse, because a lot of times when we get into situations with our spouses, we think that we are having problems with our spouse, but in the reality is it's spiritual warfare, and we are having issues with a spirit that is trying to come and wreck our marriages. Only way that you would understand that is if you have a godly marriage and you understand when things arise, that's what it is. It's the enemy. It's not your spouse. I don't care if it's a drug problem. I don't care if it's infidelity. I don't care if it's gambling issues. I don't care if it's like, children being born outside of marriage. I'm like, all of those type of things that happen, that is a spirit that is using your spouse to break your marriage. So I mean, he comes in all forms, all right? And it's all different types of spirits that's being used to wreck marriages. However, when you have a healthy marriage, a godly marriage, where the presence of God is there and his spirit is working, it transcends each individual inside the marriage. When you have a godly marriage, there's unity there, all right? And the unity is built from a shared commitment to defeat the enemy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is so true. Because I can speak to this in my own life. I'm telling you. All right. There's a unity in a godly marriage, because the unity is built from a shared commitment, y'all, to defeat a common enemy. I can speak that because me and my husband, that's what we want to do all day long. We defeating the enemy. Like, that's it. Like, it's like us against him, like real talk. We have those conversations and we have a real understanding of that. And so the enemy doesn't like that, because when you guys are together and you have an understanding of what the enemy's trying to do, he can't mess with you. All right. So the principle must be understood between husband and wife. It must be accepted, and it must be continually sought after in marriage to experience victory. Y'all got to be on the same page. When you in a godly marriage, a kingdom marriage, you're on the same page. That's how that works. You already know who the enemy is, so you ain't going up beside each other. You're not going up upside each other's head, because you know, like, we're not fighting each other. We're fighting a common enemy. We already know. We know that this is not about us. This is about God, and we just have another understanding, so we don't struggle in the way that a lot of worldly marriages struggle. We just don't have them type of problems. All right, we just don't have those type of problems. um and a lot of people struggle in their marriages because they want to satisfy themselves, their own personal desires, in marriage, rather than bring God glory. Like, it's not fun to bring God glory. I mean, that's what a lot of people say. You not saying it, but you saying it. You know what I mean? So the problems arise there because your marriage is struggling. In many believers, they struggle in their marriage because they want to satisfy themselves, their own personal desires, and in their marriage, rather than bring God glory. God needs you to bring glory. That's what marriage is for. But if we just worried about ourselves and what we want and how things should look, and I need this and I need that, then we're not bringing God glory. We're trying to bring ourselves glory, and that's where the problem lies. All right. And so, in a godly marriage, your marriage must be first. All right. You have to understand the order in the home. Oh my goodness. You have to understand the order inside of the house, guys. It's an order to this. It's an order to this. All right. And a lot of times when life happens and families are being built, and sometimes you have families that are created, not necessarily built, but you have to understand the order. It has to be God first. It has to be husband. Under husband is wife. Under wife is children. Under children, it's out, maybe immediate family, everybody else, and then it goes from there. All right. Did you get that order? I hope you wrote it down. The children ain't second, the children ain't first. The family members don't come up under God. Nobody is above God. You know what I'm saying? But the order is husband, and then wife, and then children. All right. And then everybody else. But a lot of times we get caught up in life, and then we start putting our children ahead of our spouses, the wife role, the husband. We start putting it in, and a lot of times, because we get so busy with children, we sometimes put them over God. I'm like, oh my goodness, you can't do that, because that is not kingdom. That is not godly, to create idols out of your children, to create idols in other areas of your life. God should always be first, then husband, then wife, and the wife he is the head of the house. All right. And she should be following the head of the house. And that is the order. All right. And whatever um, disagreements should be between husband and wife, and you guys should come together in unison to make decisions for your household. It's not a separate thing. I'm not talking to my children over here about their parent and vice versa. It's just, that you don't do that. You always have to show a united front if you want a successful marriage. I don't know why a lot of people get caught up in that. My children come first. My children come first. Ain't nobody gonna be before my children. Okay, well then, if that's the case, go be with your children, and you don't need a husband or you don't need a wife, because that's not the order of God. That's not the way that go. And God is not pleased with that. He didn't tell you to put your children first. He told you to put your husband first. He told you to put your wife first. All right. Anyway, let's move forward, because that's a whole nother ball game. All right. When you have a godly marriage, like I said before, when the attacks come, you look at the attacks with different eyes. You're not looking at issues with your spouse that, this man just out his mind. I just can't, all that type of stuff. You're looking at him. I'm like, okay, the enemy has had a gateway to get in my spouse, then we need to be warring at this time. I need to be warring on the behalf of my husband. I need to take my husband. We need to pray. We need to remove this spirit from our household, what I'm saying, and war the spirit out our life. All right. And so in a godly marriage, there is peace in it. There is trust in it. There is understanding in it. There is connection in it. There is teamwork. It's no jealousy inside of a marriage. It's teamwork. It's no confusion, all right, about being together. When you have a godly marriage, it's not like one week, I don't know if I want to be with this person. This person get on my nerves. I can't take it. When you have a godly marriage, you are clear about the things that God is doing and what your purpose is. It's not, you're not hot and cold all the time. You're not off and on all the time. All right. All right. And so you understand that when you in a godly marriage, your pursuits are different from the pursuits of the world. All right. Your goals are different from the goals of the world, meaning that you're not going to take on things inside of a godly kingdom marriages that's going to jeopardize your marriage. Oh my goodness. You're not going to take on things that's going to jeopardize it. All right. And so you're not going to take on things. Let me just give a perfect example. We all want to be, a lot of people want to be successful in business. Not everybody, but a lot of people want to be successful in business. And a lot of times, you have people that become successful at business. But let me tell you something, success come with a cost. I mean, we can sit up here and play games and act like success do not come with a cost. Success come with a cost. We can glorify it all day long on social media, but guess what? When you put that time into whatever you're trying to build, somewhere else in your life is lacking. All right. You're not able to give. It's no such thing as being able to give 100 here, 100 here, 100 here, 100 here. No one in the world can do that. And so when you see a lot of successful people and they finally get to the top, and then you wonder why sometimes their marriages are failing, because they have jeopardized their marriage in order to have a successful life. And with a godly kingdom marriage, you understand that nothing that you guys do or decisions that you make, whether in business, whether, in personal decisions that you're making about different things about your life, it's not going to jeopardize your marriage. All right. And so we have to be very careful about desiring the same things that the world desires, because the world say, okay, go and get it. And they're not worrying about, if it's going to tear up down the family. They're not worrying about if the father is going to be absent. They're not concerned about whether he's not going to be able to be with his wife and spend time with his wife, and be out in the world more often and be tempted by the world, and his house is falling apart, but I'm building $1 million business over here. It's just, we have a different understanding of things. And I'm not saying that you can't be successful in kingdom, but you have a different perspective and a different understanding, and a different route a lot of times to build things, because you're not willing to, guess what, sacrifice the advancement of God's kingdom, what marriage is. All right. All right. And if you're having a hard time in your godly and kingdom marriages, I would suggest that you get back into your word and start, fast, pray, do what you need to do to build a closer relationship with God, because that would tell me that you are struggling in the area of relationship when you are struggling in your kingdom marriages. Okay. Because we want to make sure that our motives are pure and that we're staying on track on focusing on what our true purpose is in marriage. All right. And our true purpose in marriage is to help advance God's kingdom and make sure that he is glorified. So when you see yourself struggling in marriage, you have to understand that, okay, maybe my motives have shifted. Maybe I have lost the understanding. Maybe I need to be spending more time with God so I can renew my mind and get the strength I need to continue on this journey of kingdom marriage. All right. I hope y'all got this. I hope y'all got this. Please. I hope that you have not only got it, but received it and you have digested it. Okay. And you are allowing it to marinate within your spirit today. All right. So I do have a couple of questions. Oh my goodness. I have to look on my other page for my other questions. So I posted a video about Lala. Lala is well known. She's an actor, but she was like a MTV DJ back in the day. She became well known. She had married like a successful basketball player, and she have all her celebrity friends, and she's fabulous. And I really, she's a beautiful person. Don't know her personally, but from afar, she is awesome. All right. And so she had posted a video about um she's divorced. She was married for some time to a basketball player. I believe she's divorced now. But she was posting a video about how all the married people that she know are miserable, and that people nowadays no longer have the desire to be a wife or a husband. All right. And so when I seen the video, I was like, wow, oh man. The scary part about today's time is that the influence that people have on godly people, and the influence that they have on worldly people, just the influence period. You know what I'm saying? Because what she's putting out in the atmosphere could register with so many different women, especially if they're going through hard times. Let's just say you're trying to live for God and you're looking for a spouse, and it just don't seem like he's ever going to come, and then you hear a message like that from Lala, and then you give up hope completely, and you're just like, oh Lord, if she's having trouble with finding a spouse, then I know I'm gonna have some trouble finding a spouse, because she has everything. Who wouldn't want her? And so we just have to be really careful about the things that we listen to, the influences. Like I said, that Black Love doc, we listen to these people, but I'm like, it's okay. You can congratulate people for having long-term relationships, marriages, but I really don't know who's their source and who's their center. And if I don't know who their source and their center, I'm not listening. But the reason why I say that what Lala is saying is so dangerous is because the reason why she feels like that is because she had an expectation. And that's because that's coming from a worldly mindset. She had an expectation of what things were supposed to look like, what things were supposed to be. And the expectation was not fulfilled, and she has lost all hope in general. And she don't see any happy marriages around her anyway. People are miserable in their marriages, and they're miserable in their marriages because they are living a worldly marriage. And a worldly marriage is when people are concerned about their own personal happiness. They're concerned about companionship, and they're concerned about things that we shouldn't be focused on in marriage. Now, happiness it happens in marriage. I have a happy marriage. There's so many people that have happy marriages, but that's a benefit. That's not something that we should go out and actually say, well, if you can't make me happy, then I'm not messing with you. If you can't provide for me in this way, then I'm not messing with you. Or if you can't be this type of companion for me, then I'm not messing with you. And that's a very self-centered, flesh-driven relationship, and it's very one-sided, and it's not of God. And so I think the reason why it's so dangerous, because people are already at their wit's end when it comes to finding a spouse, and it just gives a bad look on marriage in general. And if a person is a babe in Christ, or a person that don't know Christ at all, and don't really have an understanding of what marriage is, it just further leads to the stereotype of what marriages really are, and people are not really happy. That's not true. People are faking it, and people are cheating, and it's just marriage just has such a bad look, guys. It just has such a bad look because of people. It's because of people. It's because they don't understand what marriage is truly about. They haven't went to the creator of marriage. So if you're not going to the creator of marriage to understand how to do marriage, you won't have a successful marriage. And that's just period, point blank. But like I said before, and I'm going to say it again, if you're not a person that's concerned about pleasing God, if you're not a person that's concerned about what his purpose is and his kingdom and furthering his kingdom, if you don't have a heart for that, then marriage is not for you. All right. If you're not concerned about your marriage reflecting God, period, I don't feel like it's not for you. All right. And you should be focused on advancing his kingdom and understanding that this is a much deeper thing. But the only way that you'll know that is if you dive into your word. Um, and just really get to know him for yourself. All right. And so I hope that this has been helpful for you. It's just so when I think about this topic, you guys, it's just so many things that run through my head. Like when I was thinking about doing this, it was just like it felt like so many different words and comments and questions that I had going through my head. It's just like I can talk about this for hours, but of course I can't stay online for hours. So this is what I want to do. If anybody wants to have this conversation solo with me, if anybody is struggling in the area of not really understanding where they stand in their marriage, if you have a worldly marriage, but how to go from a worldly marriage to a kingdom marriage to a godly marriage, I need you to reach out to me directly. You can go on my website, theofficialwifetribe.com, or you can reach me. You can email me at info@theofficialwifetribe.com. I want to go ahead. We can do a consult. I do want to, have this conversation with you because I think it's very important, because when you don't understand it, then that's when the problems arise. And another thing, if you're dealing with a spouse, and these are for the people that's currently married, and you are there, but they're not there. They're not there. So it's really hard to have this kingdom marriage. It's really hard to have this godly marriage because they have a worldly mind. They have a worldly perspective. They're living a worldly life. And so now you have one side that's godly, and then you have the other side that is worldly. And that's a lot of marriages. Okay. That's a lot of marriages. That's a lot of them. And so, what you have to do, because you're already in it, and we always want to make sure that the marriages that we get in are God ordained and not our own personal um, desire and want. And I think that's a whole nother topic, because we have to make sure when we enter into covenant with people that this is something that God wanted us to do, because He's going to bring the two people together to advance His kingdom. All right. The right people to be able to advance the kingdom. When you're having some struggle in that area, you got to ask yourself, is this something that God did, or is this something that I did? But God can bless anything. And so even if you made a decision and it was your own personal decision, you was led by your flesh or yourself, and you got married anyway, and the person is in the world, then you have to continue to live your kingdom life and continue to intercede for your spouse until God until they receive God in their hearts. And we don't know how long that can take. It can be instantly, and sometimes it can take years, but you cannot give up on your part just because your spouse is not doing his part inside of marriage. So I hope this was helpful. I didn't use the full hour. Thank God. Like I said, if you have any questions for me, definitely you can reach out to me directly, or you can put the questions in the chat. So I have a question for you though before I leave. How does making happiness the goal of marriage create problems in marriage? I want to put that in the chat. I'm going to put it in the chat after the video is finished. But how does making happiness the goal of marriage create problems in marriage? Can you ask yourself that? How does making happiness the goal of marriage create problems in one's marriage? Okay, that's one question. I had one more question for y'all. Hold on, let me see if I can bring it up. I had one more question. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find it. All right, hold on. And then my next question is like, what spiritual goals can you and your spouse unify around? Like, do you even have goals like in your marriage? Do you have spiritual goals? I think every marriage should have some spiritual goals. Like, have you had that conversation with your spouse about spiritual goals in your marriage? That's one thing. And that's really important, that you should have the spiritual goals. I feel like I had another question. Let me see. All right. How can you and your spouse fight Satan together instead of fighting each other in your marriage? You have to know that it's the enemy. I mean, if you don't realize that it's the enemy, listen, you're going to be fighting each other, and then the fight is going to get bad. Because if you don't recognize that it's the enemy, that you're under attack, then you're going to attack each other, and it gets bad. Okay, but if you don't know that this is the enemy, I think that's a big problem for people look at people and they don't look at the enemy of marriage. And why is the enemy so against marriages? Why? Because he don't want God's kingdom to advance, and that's what marriage is. It's for the advancement of God's kingdom. So this is not about us, guys. This is about God. All right. And we want to keep that in the back of our minds when we're going through things with our spouse. But when you have a desire to please God, when you have a desire to live for God, when you have a desire to advance God's kingdom, when you have a desire to fulfill his will in your life, then marriage becomes easy. It becomes simple, but you have to have a heart for God in order to do it. That's why I said you have to be selfless. That's a godly marriage. That's a kingdom marriage. Selfish, all right? And it's spirit driven. It requires you to change things about yourself so you can be someone that God can use, all right? And that's what this is all about. So, thank you, ladies, so much for staying on with me, watching until the end. Please, please, please go ahead and share this with some girlfriends. And for all the ladies that's going to see it later, I pray that this is helpful for you as well. Please reach out if you have any questions. Like I said, you see my website here. You guys have a blessed evening. I hope this motivational Monday has blessed you, and I hope that you leave this video with a new mind, a new understanding, and understand that change will probably need to take place if you're not already there, to how to get there to have a godly kingdom marriages. You ladies be blessed. I'll be back soon with another video.